Yes, from downtown. That's my Marv Albert impression.
10 on the shot clock. Pippen making Hornacek. Here's Jordan from yes. Michael Jordan from straight away.
Guys, we might not have baseball season going on right now, but you know what we do have? Vintage baseball cards. And today the grading wars continue as we compare PSA grades versus SGC grades and get everybody all riled up. Stay tuned. Hello to all my sports card collectors, investors, all of my collectibles friends. How are we doing? I hope that everybody is doing very well. I want to first start off by talking to some of my critics lately. So I've been told here recently that I have been a pusher or a pumper of certain grading companies, which I think this is really hilarious because I talk about all four of the big four grading companies, and every single time I do, I get the, are you on the PSA payroll or are you on the SGC payroll? You're really talking great about PSA. Let me just first explain something to you. If you think that my channel has any bearing on the popularity of PSA slabs to the overall hobby landscape, you're wrong. You're just not even close to being right. And why is that? They have tens of millions of cards in the backlog. They just now got into 5-6 million cards, 3, 4, 5, 6 million cards. I am a peon. I am an ant in the gigantic playground of the hobby. And me talking about PSA and how they're grading 200,000 cards a week, almost 1 million cards a month, has absolutely no bearing on why people are submitting to PSA. And then I heard the same thing. Oh, you're talking a lot about SGC. Newsflash, they've been around for 20 plus years, guys. And yes, they have not graded near as many cards as a PSA. None of the other companies have, frankly. But SGC has been around. They've been popular before anybody was talking about them. And then I heard nobody's talking about CSG. How come, PFD doesn't talk about CSG? Too many acronyms. CSG. I actually was one of the first ones talking about CSG when they started grading sports cards almost a year ago or about a year ago or whatever it was. Right as that news hit, I reported on it. The majority of my channel is reporting the news. I'm basically a glorified news anchor, underqualified, not very good, but that's what I do. That's what this channel is. So yes, I do talk about good things related to the grading companies. I also talk about bad things that aren't great, service issues, delays, blah, blah, blah. We talk about all of it here. So for those that are out there that don't think I'm doing quite a good enough job at it, I'm doing my best. And if you go back and look at the videos, you'll see that I've been very even as far as positive and negative news when it comes to grading companies. All right, enough of this chatter. Let's talk about some vintage baseball cards, shall we? We've got 5 cards. I picked 5 cards that I thought that would be interesting. I don't own any of the cards. This isn't like I'm trying to pump up my own collection crap, whatever. No, these are just 5 random vintage baseball cards that I picked out. Frankly, I don't see any other content about these particular cards. So I'm like, you know what? Let's just throw this out into the universe so that people can throw in their 2 cents. All right, the first card we're going to look at, one of my favorite looking, aesthetically looking baseball sets, the 1975 Topps George Brett rookie card in a PSA 8 versus an SGC 8. And we're looking at resale value mainly, guys. Of course, whether you like PSA or you like SGC, that's just a matter of taste, whether you like the slabs, whether you like the grades, etc. But one thing I thought was really interesting, and I'm looking at, for this particular card, I was looking at Card Ladder, and this is actually very helpful. So Card Ladder's pulling data from eBay, they're pulling data from a variety of different sources, and they pulled out a $588 sale from Heritage Auctions. Now, if you look at the other PSA 8s recently, $850, $855, but then you have another recent sale of a PSA 8, $588. Now, granted, maybe that PSA 8 has some weird centering. Maybe there's something about that card on Heritage that just wasn't quite as good as the other ones that sold for $800, or it might just be a glitch in the matrix.
Okay, you have some skin.
And heritage auctions might be a place to look for cards. That's not a place where I typically go looking for cards, but as we've seen kind of the fractionalization, all the different selling platforms, this is important information to know. Heritage auctions might be a spot to take a look, just like with PWCC, just like with, eBay or any of these other places, make comparisons. So I thought that was interesting because that's a drastic difference in price. And again, I know with vintage cards, you can get all sorts of different, centering, corners. There's a lot of different, there's eye appeal that changes with all these cards. So I totally get that point. But I would still say this is a fairly common card, that 75 top set. It's not 52 tops. It's 75 tops. So check that out. Heritage auctions if you haven't already. If we're looking at price points, really, you have $588 at Heritage, and then you did have a recent sale of an SGC 8 in that, I believe it was $550 roughly. So a similar comp in an SGC 8 compared to a PSA 8. And granted, guys, just being that these are vintage cards, there's not huge populations on any of these, so we're going to have sales. There's not going to be 10 sales from yesterday. They're going to be a little bit sporadic. The good thing with vintage baseball cards, though, not a lot of movement on these cards. There's not huge swings on these cards. So even if we have a sale from, end of December, it doesn't necessarily mean that those prices have changed drastically in a 60-day span of time. Love that set. All right, we're going to go back a little bit further in time. A 54 tops Ernie Banks rookie card. This is where you get some serious variance as far as just eye appeal and the way these look. I had to go with PSA 3 and SGC 3 just to get more sales. Because again, once you get into like higher grade, a 7, an 8, a 9, they don't sell very often. So you can't really make any sort of, pricing comparisons. But in a PSA 3, you're recently seeing $1,000, best offer taken at $1,250. And then for SGC, $915, right in that $1,000 range as well. So SGC PSA, fairly close as far as recent pricing goes between PSA and SGC. But man, where you see big differences here is in centering. When you look at that 54 tops, and it's not even it's just the way those things were cut. Back then. And this is regardless, any vintage cards. You go back to all these 50s cards, centering is always, that's the number one thing. When you're looking at these, you've got surface, you've got edges and all that. For me personally, if I'm picking between SGC and PSA for these, I'd probably go with PSA because they've got a little bit more of an ironclad guarantee. If I'm spending $1,000 on a card and I find out later it's been trimmed or I find out that it's a reprint or whatever, not that SGC won't work with you, but PSA has a good track record of when they're wrong, they end up paying for it. They end up, paying the difference. So I would probably, if it's just me, I'd probably be picking PSA if I'm buying $1,000 50s card, if the pricing is just about the same. But that's just me, and again, would vary card by card. Next up, Reds legend Johnny Bench rookie card, 1968 tops. Let's look at some 4s, shall we? PSA 4 in range for about $162 to $190 recently. SGC 4 right in the same boat, $163 to about $200. A little bit older of the sales. PSA 4 is going back to December, so not brand new sales, but you can see that between an SGC 4 and a PSA 4, it's right in line, right about the same as far as resale value goes. Legendary pitcher Nolan Ryan, same set, 1968 tops. Let's stay with 4s just because it's a little bit more common. PSA 4s sell for a little bit more than SGC here from what I'm seeing as far as recent sales go. $810 to $900 for PSA 4. SGC 4s, there's a couple of sales, $660 to $799. But again, like we talk about, especially when you get into these mid grades, a lot of variance in eye appeal. You can have, I've got this. I've got a Johnny Unitas rookie card in a PSA 4 that I thought looked a lot better than a 5 and a 6 that I saw at this last national that I was at. So I ended up paying less for that 4. But to me, I thought that the eye appeal, the centering, everything was better than some of the 5s, 6s. It all just depends. These cards, that's what's kind of fun about it. When you get into vintage grading, there's a lot of variance in that grading depending on what you prioritize, whether it be corners or centering or, edges, whatever it is, surface. Last but certainly not least, let's go back to that psychedelic 1975 top set. Love the look of the set and really fairly affordable for Hall of Famers. Robin Yount, let's look at an 8. A PSA 8 for Robin Yount falls right in about $350 to $400. And then for SGC, there is one sale that I found, $331.65. So right in that same zone. So yeah, it just kind of depends on which company you like best, which slab you like better. But man, that Robin Yount rookie card is really, really cool. I like the Brett rookie too. That set in general, just aesthetically, it's hard not to like it. It's so 70s, just the way that it looks. But guys, 5 cards I thought would be interesting to talk about. Vintage baseball cards. I don't think we see it talked about enough as far as kind of recent pricing. I will be doing more of these PSA versus SGC type stuff. And the reason why I'm not including BGS or CSG with vintage baseball or vintage football probably or vintage basketball is because they just haven't graded much of it. If you look at gemrate.com, they give a lot of this data where you can see what are these companies grading the most of. And CSG and BGS, they just have not done a lot of the vintage cards. They just haven't. And so for that reason alone, we won't really include them. That's why I like to put kind of the PSA versus SGC. But all 4 great companies. But that's just why we're doing it that way, in case anybody is wondering. All right, y'all, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you own any of these cards? Are you looking for any of these cards? I'd like to hear your thoughts. And if you have any suggestions, any other, 70s basketball, 80s football, whatever you would like to see, I will be doing more of these kind of the PSA versus SGC from a resale standpoint. Because, hey, there's more to life than just ultramodern, guys. There's more to life than Acuna and Tatis and all the, the 2017 and up, Luka, Zion, blah, 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 whatever. There's a lot of cards out there. All right, guys, stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will talk to you again later.